Prophets watched the stars at night, a flying chariot polished and bright. A wheel within a wheel saw Ezekiel, rims full of eyes angels revealed. A hovering craft he saw in the sky, an object that remains unidentified. Ezekiel's Wheel by Solomon Verses on allpoetry.com.
Since the beginning of mankind, humans have looked to the skies and observed its many wonders. But our ancestors have also witnessed strange aerial anomalies that they did not recognize as anything natural. In their eyes, these flying objects were omens, divine interventions, or even the vehicles of gods. Join us tonight as we crane our necks to the skies in search of ancient UFOs on this alien episode of Snipe Hunt.
Welcome to Snipe Hunt, your frightening folklore podcast. I am Giorgio Tsoukalos' best friend, Darren Young.
And I am the pilot of the Chariot of Gods, Gary Clevenstein.
It's pretty dope.
Yeah, all sorts of awesome chariot.
And that was our surprise guest appearance by Gary's phone.
Oh,
or his watch.
that was my watch. I have my phone muted.
By Gary's electronic device.
Son of a buck.
Whoa.
Boom.
Boom.
All right. Together,
Yes.
we are your guide to the beings that may or may not lie beyond the stars. And tonight, we are taking a page out of the book of history,
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, technically, yes. Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
That part's accurate.
But we're actually taking a page out of the book of the History Channel and exploring the concept of ancient aliens, or at least ancient unidentified flying objects.
Yes, and we are back with our soundboard, and I have a very special clip just for this episode. This is the medieval style of the X-Files theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's ancient aliens, medieval style.
Wow.
You are welcome. So yeah, I found that. Oh yeah, and shout out to, oh man, I'll put it in the description because it said you can use this if you give a shout out to the channel. So it'll be in the description. Go check it out. He does all kinds of medieval covers and they're all great.
Oh, like he actually plays the instruments himself?
Yes.
Nice.
Right? No, it's great. So definitely check that out.
But hey, is it technically okay to use it for free even though he's using an obvious copyrighted?
Well, it falls under fair use.
Oh.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Unlike the History Channel, rather than spending 10 plus episodes speculating the purpose of the Great Pyramids, we will spend one episode discussing historically recorded UFO encounters and comparing them to real folklore. Many people are under the impression that UFO sightings are a recent phenomena, but the reality is that there are tons of aerial anomalies dating back to the beginning of recorded history. We've got several sightings to cover today, ranging thousands of years, from 1400 BCE to 1800 AD, all long before flying machines were invented.
So
that we know of.
Oh, yeah. So the thing is, it's in one episode, but like he said, we're covering 1400 to 1800, 1400 BCE to 1800 AD. So this will be a 48-hour long episode.
Yes, it has to be. We're on a marathon right now. We have our stock of Mountain Dew and Monster Energy, and we're getting jacked up and we're ready to go.
But at the end of the day, it's one episode.
Just one episode. The one to top all episodes. What is the record for the longest podcast episode? Hold on.
I think it's 10 hours, I think.
Let's find out. 36-hour nonstop podcast on 21st and 26th. So we're definitely going to beat it. Didn't sleep for the full 36-hour marathon.
Hell yeah.
Yep. We're beating it tonight, boys.
That was way off.
And girls.
10 hours.
Yeah. That was actually longer than I thought it was going to be. I was surprised. Now, this technically isn't an alien episode, okay? UFOs are more often than not connected to the idea of extraterrestrials, and the encounters we discuss tonight could be of alien origin, but they might be something natural and misidentified, or it could be something else we might consider paranormal. In fact, many people nowadays are using the term UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, to describe sightings because the term UFO is always associated with aliens, which isn't necessarily the case. Plus, the UAP term could describe atmospheric phenomena as well, which could be natural or supernatural. But basically, UAP and UFO are interchangeable acronyms, but UAP covers a wider range of experiences. Got it?
Got it.
So UAP is the new UFO.
UAP, not to be confused with WAP.
Yes.
Gotcha.
WAP. It's I work in IT, so to me that means wireless access point.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't want to go into this just assuming everything's aliens. Of course, that's what we're going to lean into, but let's just not assume. If it flies and you can't identify it, it is technically a UFO or UAP, and that's all there is to it.
Gotcha.
Okay. Got that out of the way.
Uh-huh.
Ready to go.
And this was a Patreon voted topic.
It was.
So if you want to vote on future episodes, go to patreon.com/Snipe Hunt and check out all the awesome polls there.
Yep, check them out. I'm going to be putting up a new one soon. So before we jump too far into it, have you ever seen the show Ancient Aliens?
I've only seen
the History
commercials.
Channel? Yeah.
Never seen it.
So I've watched a fair amount of Ancient Aliens back in the day, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting in the most ridiculous way of all time. I'm glad that you're not too familiar with it because I got a little special treat for you and the listeners today.
Oh, nice.
For those unfamiliar with the History Channel's infamous Ancient Aliens, I have a clip from Giorgio Tsoukalos himself. I don't know if you know who Giorgio Tsoukalos is. Have you ever seen the meme where it's the guy with the crazy hair holding his hands like this going, aliens?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an older meme.
That's
him?
him?
That's him.
Oh.
That's him. And that's directly from the show Ancient Aliens. Now, for some context about for the clip I'm about to play, here's a brief summary of an Egyptian myth about the Egyptian god Osiris, who was killed by his brother Seth, who dismembered the body into several pieces and scattered them. The pieces were found by Osiris's wife, Isis, who buried the pieces, and Osiris was resurrected as the god of the underworld. So just a little bonus, super brief mythology throughout at you.
Is that where ISIS got their name?
No. It translated in our language to Islamic State, but it was like an acronym in their language was
Gotcha.
ISIS. You get it? Yeah. So here's what Giorgio had to say about this particular myth.
Now, when I hear a story like that a being is dismembered and then somebody puts together those pieces and then they're able to magically resurrect him, I have to ask the question, is it possible that Osiris was not some type of biological entity, but perhaps he was some type of a machine or a robot?
Transformers, robots in disguise. Transformers, more that meets the eye.
All those guys sound the same.
Yeah, they do.
Like the Sasquatch guy, that guy. They all sound very similar.
Yeah, well, they are all very similar in the fact they have some very interesting beliefs. But yeah, that's basically a good summary of Ancient Aliens. It's, what if this god wasn't a god at all, but an alien, or in this case, a robot? So yeah, that just summarizes the whole show. It was really difficult to find like an isolated clip of just that, because I was like, oh, there should be tons of funny Ancient Alien clips on YouTube. No, it's just mostly just like full episodes or like serious clips or stuff like that. So I had to dig a little bit to find something small enough to fit into this podcast.
I figured you would
episode,
just grab it and then snip it.
That's basically what I had to do. I took a 4-minute video and I snipped out like 20 seconds of it for that. So now, obviously, I don't really put too much stock in the concept of prehistoric aliens or ancient UFOs, but the folklore does have some interesting events which are fun to look at through a sci-fi lens. So that's pretty much what this whole episode's about, to take ancient folklore and compare it to more modern folklore. Yes, we have a long introduction for this.
All right, we'll go through a timeline of these sightings, starting with the oldest and working our way to the newest. Now, let's get started.
Let's head back to ancient Egypt real quick, to the oldest ancient true quote-unquote UAP sighting that I could find, at least, dating all the way back to 1347 BC. Now, this sighting is described as a religious experience, as are many of these ancient sightings, so just keep that in mind as we go forward. In fact, this case completely changed the course of ancient Egyptian culture forever. Oh boy. Mispronunciation alert. Not that you're surprised. Pharaoh Amenophis IV was strolling along the Nile River in what is now the archaeological site Tel El Amarna. When he spotted a shining disc descending from the sky. This disc spoke to the pharaoh, instructing him to build a new capital called Akhenaten, the horizon of the solar disc. What you have to understand is that the Egyptians at this time, and through most of history, I guess, were polytheistic, worshipping many gods, including an aspect of the sun god Ra, a minor deity called Aten, which took the form of a sun disk. However, after his experience, the pharaoh changed his name to Akhenaten, which meant effective spirit of Aten, or beloved of Aten, and made Aten the supreme god of the Egyptian pantheon. Pharaoh Akhenaten then later forbade the worship of other gods other than Aten, converting Egypt from polytheism to monolatry, which is the acknowledgement of many gods but the exclusive worship of only one almighty god, which was a radical departure from what Egypt had practiced for centuries. Now, a terrible example of this, because it's definitely not a one-to-one comparison, would be, say, in Christianity, there's the belief in the Trinity, which is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Now, that would be like if whoever president of the United States came out and said, hey, we don't worship God like we used to anymore. We're only worshiping the Holy Spirit. The other ones still exist, but they're not worthy of worship. Only the Holy Spirit is. Like I said, this is a terrible comparison, but this is the best thing I can apply it to that most people would be familiar with. So,
well, I mean, that's essentially all religions anyways, right? Like,
essentially, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just like someone picks the God we worship,
yes.
And then, yeah. But this new religion, called Atenism, did not last for long. It was completely dead in less than 30 years. But this complete religious revolution occurred just because one man saw a disc in the sky. And then what a lot of people don't know is that Aten is the best looking of all the Egyptian gods. He is definitely Aten out of 10.
That was good.
Thank you. I thought of it randomly. I was like, oh, I gotta get in my computer and write that down right now.
Oh man. Atenism.
That's what it's called.
I have Atenism.
I have severe autism.
Oh god.
That was good.
All right, our next aerial anomaly is also considered a religious experience. We find ourselves in the 9th century BCE with the prophet Elijah, well known for his showdown against the prophets of the god Baal.
Yep.
Baal. Which he totally owned by calling down fire from the heavens to prove the existence of his god over the god Baal.
It's pwned.
I thought it was owned. It's just
no, that's
with
how
a
you
P.
spell pwn.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was spelled pwned, but it's actually pronounced owned because it's just a different.
Because it's like a typo.
It's like it was adopted.
Yeah.
Like you got owned.
Just like
but it's PW.
Just like keck got adopted as a term for LOL.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, in World of Warcraft, if you're from a different faction, whatever you type would appear as a different language to the other faction. So if someone from the Horde typed LOL, it would show up as keck on the chat. So people started using keck instead of LOL.
Oh damn!
There's some gamer lore dropped right in your lap.
I like it. I'm gonna write it.
Keck.
Okay. At the end of his life, Elijah is walking with his apprentice Elisha, and they cross the Jordan River by parting the waters in the same way Moses did when escaping captivity in Egypt. Then, according to the book of 2 Kings, as they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha saw this and cried out, my father, the chariots and horsemen of Israel! And Elisha saw him no more.
Rip. Chariots of Fire is
I'm pretty sure it's Elisha.
No, it's Elisha.
I'm pretty sure it's Elisha.
Bro, you know how many youth groups I've been in who said Elisha?
Oh, really? Like that? Like they actually pronounce it?
Yes, that's how it's pronounced.
Elisha.
In all the Baptist churches I've been to, which has been quite a few.
Okay, I don't need this much knowledge, man. Once again, this could very well just be a religious experience, as the chariot of fire and horses could all be symbolic. The horses could represent power and speed. The chariot could represent protection and triumph, and the heavenly fire was very on brand for Elijah as well as for God's angels. The fiery horses and chariot is also reminiscent of the god Helios, who drove the chariot of the sun across the sky in Greek mythology.
Connections.
Although, if we take the ancient alien approach, we might interpret the chariot as a craft and the fire and whirlwind described as maybe a propulsion system. And then the whole event as an alien abduction. Although this really doesn't account for the horses.
They're alien horses. It's fine. Everyone knows that space horses are always on fire.
I like to believe that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That seems like a sweet power metal album cover, for sure.
It's like the game Brutal Legend.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm playing that right now. I love that game.
So alien horses, maybe, perhaps from the planet Omicron Horsey I-8. Futurama fans get the joke. Who employ themselves out to pull chariots or for other aliens, or God himself, and maybe for some space oats. You know?
I'm not familiar.
You get it.
I get it.
Yeah, you get it.
Sure.
All right, so for our next entry, we go to Asia, specifically to the country of India, and their legends of the Vamanas, first recorded during the 5th century BCE. Now, I'm going to throw around a bunch of Hindu names and terms that might get confusing, so try to keep up. I'm also going to likely mispronounce all of them. Like the Greeks and the Hebrews, the ancient Indians also had legends of aerial wheeled chariots being pulled by flying horses, but they also had Vamanas, which are described as the flying machines of the gods.
Metal.
I still don't have a soundbite for that. I need to get Zach just to make it my guitarist. The Sanskrit word Vamana literally means measuring out, traversing, or having been measured out. British scholar and Sanskrit expert Sir Monier Williams described Vamana as, quote, a car or chariot of the gods, any self-moving aerial car, sometimes serving as a seat or throne, sometimes self-moving and carrying its occupant through the air. Other descriptions make the Vamana more like a house or a palace, and one kind is said to be 7 stories high. So these are big flying machines that could also be like the size of the chair I'm sitting in. They can either be the size of the chair I'm sitting in, or they can be, the size of a skyscraper. The first true Vamana was recorded was the Pushpaka Vamana in the Sanskrit epic, the Ramayana. This flowery Vamana was built by the craftsmen of the gods, Viswakarma, for the supreme god, Brahma, nailed that one, the creator, who then gifted it to the god of wealth, Kubera, and was later stolen by the king Ravana, the main antagonist of the epic. Right? You got that? You ready to move on? All right, let's go. The Vamana was chariot-like in appearance. It was described as such in the Ramayana epic. The Pushpaka Vamana that resembles the sun and belongs to my brother was brought by the powerful Ravana. That aerial and excellent Vamana going everywhere at will. That chariot resembling a bright cloud in the sky. And the king Rama got in, and the excellent chariot at the command of the Raghira rose up into the higher atmosphere.
We could make a really good, Susie sold seashells down by the sea.
Yes, using all these words from Indian epics for sure. Especially there's Vimana, and then there's King Ravana. And then there's Vishwakarma and Brahma and Ravana and Vimana and Pushpaka and just all kinds of stuff. I'm pretty sure that was the best way I pronounced all of them just by listing them out like that. So I thought it was interesting that this one resembles a cloud, like some sort of camouflage to cover some sort of alien craft. Yeah, you're going to hear that a lot. Gary gave me a look of oh my God, mind blown. The term Vimana can also refer to a type of architecture of a several-story temple in the rough shape of a pyramid. So if you do a Google search for Vimana, you'll often see these pyramids flying around in the sky, so it's pretty funny to look up. So there are other references to flying crafts in Sanskrit literature, such as the Bhagavata Piranha, which was actually Fun trivia fact, one of the 18 great Puranas, which are literary collections of Hindu legends. So the Puranas are just bundles of texts, is what they are. Yes, not to be confused with Purina, which is the pet food brand.
Oh.
Yeah. The Bhagavata Piranha specifically was written down in the 6th or 5th century BCE, but tells tales that allegedly date back thousands of years before. I was able to find an English translation of this collection of legends, and one of the words that keeps popping up, interestingly enough, is spacecraft. Although I'm not sure what the Sanskrit word for this term is. It's not Vamana, I don't think, but spacecraft or aircraft does seem accurate based on the context in which it's used. One of these tales includes a demonic king by the name of Salva, who supposedly had one of these spacecrafts. Here is an excerpt. And yes, I took all these readings so you wouldn't have to fumble through all these words. I get to fumble through all these words.
Yes.
When he received the news of Shishupala's death, his friend Salva became very angry and decided to avenge him by waging war against Krishna's city. So he obtained a wonderful spacecraft named Saubha, built by Mayadanava, and followed a large army as he reached Dvarka, and besieged it. While Krishna was in Indrapasa for the rest. I should have got some of these words out. Oh, man.
While Krishna was in some place.
For some sort of sacrifice of this some special being. From the spacecraft, Salva dropped a shower of weapons, rocks, tree trunks, lightnings, snakes, and hailstorms, and swept the city with violent winds carrying dust, just like the spaceship of the Asura Tripura had tormented Earth in ancient times. End quote. Finally. Now, given the whole concept of this episode, you might have gathered that this sounds like Salva bombed a city, maybe even dropped a nuke. He dropped, quote, a shower of weapons, rocks, tree trunks, lightnings, snakes, and hailstorms, swept the city with violent winds carrying dust.
So Mother Nature.
Yes. But if you didn't have the context of the bomb, if you didn't know anything about what a bomb was or a nuclear bomb was, that's what you would describe it as, just, or even what an explosion was. You'd be like, oh, this is just what I see, so I'm just going to write it down. When it says he dropped a shower of rocks and tree trunks, maybe that's just what they see erupting from the explosion.
All right.
And then, lightning, snakes, hailstorms. Who knows? But it sounds like a bombing. It sounds like an aerial bombing. Oh, sorry, I forgot the. Which, again, I don't take stock in this. It's highly unlikely, but it is really interesting that the concept of an aerial bombing, because that's exactly what this was. Even if it sounds exactly like it, even if it was all mythology and they came up with all of it, it's still literally the definition of an aerial bombing. He flew a ship over it and dropped stuff on the city, which destroyed the city.
Right.
So even without the context of bombs, this is literally just an aerial bombing. So I find it interesting that this was recorded in Hindu legends several millennia before it was a reality. Okay, so what also makes this particular case interesting is the creator of the craft, Maya Danava, which according to legend, the Danava were a race of demigod beings, aliens, who were exiled from the heavens and took refuge in the Vindhya mountain range of west central India. Kind of like Mount Olympus, right? God's taking up residence on an earthly mountain. The physical characteristics of the Danava were said to be similar to their half-brothers, the Deva, the good gods of Hinduism. And the Deva themselves were human-like in appearance, but often sported strange features such as animal heads, extra arms, or blue skin. Aliens. So according to the Bhagavata Piranha, humans were literally flying around in ships that were crafted by extraterrestrial beings and bombing cities using otherworldly technology. Are you tired of this yet?
Legit.
I believe it. Seems legit. You know how deep I had to dig for just that information about all the Vamanas and the bombing and stuff?
I feel bad for the original writer.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Part of the reason was we took a little bit longer to record than usual because my cough came back, so we had that, and then Elden Ring came out, so we had that, and then I had to find all the research for this. So
I was thinking about buying that. Yeah,
Brent told me you wouldn't like it.
You don't.
I don't think you would. I didn't think I was going to like it either, but I ended up loving it.
Just because it's hard.
Well, the thing is, what differentiates it from other Dark Souls games is that in Dark Souls games, if you're stuck on something, well, tough luck. You better get good quick. On this, if you're stuck on something, you're like, I think I'll go somewhere else for a while and level up. So if that appeals to you, then go for it.
But is it a Dark Souls game, or is it just compared to Dark Souls?
It's literally from the same people who made Dark Souls.
Oh, it is the same people?
They use
Okay.
even the same animation. So yes, it is a Dark Souls game.
Okay. All right.
Yes, it is a Dark Souls game for sure.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
let's talk about some omens in the sky of Rome.
All right.
Some Roman omens.
In the winter of 218 BC, Roman historian Titus Livius, aka Livy, recorded many strange things that occurred in Rome and in the surrounding areas that were seen as omens. Some notable weird happenings included an ox climbing up a 3-story building and throwing itself off.
You know, what doesn't get talked about enough in this country is ox suppression.
Ox suicide.
Ox suicide. You know, they're very
It's a real problem.
they're a pretty fringe group to be sure, but that doesn't mean we need to, you know, disparage them in any sort of way. We need to reach out to them and help them out.
Well, but what about a rain shower of stones?
Yeah, we don't need to help them out.
Or a wolf stealing the sword scabbard of a sentinel soldier?
He just wanted to be Sif from the Dark Souls games.
Lightning striking the temple of the goddess of hope?
Oh, that's bad.
Strange figures in white seen at a distance.
That's pretty scary, especially in the South.
Strange figures in white. Do they have nice bodies? Or how about a phantom navy sailing in the sky?
Okay, that just sounds cool, though.
Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Later, Livy also recorded, at Orpi, bucklers had been seen in the sky, and the sun had appeared to be fighting with the moon. At Capena, 2 moons were visible in the daytime. Okay.
Yeah, that was a very sensual Livy.
Bucklers.
I wish you would put my bucklers in the sky.
Bucklers, if you didn't know, are small round shields. So this seems to indicate several sightings of disc-shaped objects in the sky. It's always discs.
Yep, flying saucers, baby. Classic.
Around this time, Livy and other Roman historians recorded several instances of showers of stones. So it is speculated that these flying objects may have been meteors. However, in 203 BC, Livy noted a sighting of shooting stars and a meteor near Anagnia.
Ooh, that was good.
Yeah. So Livy, and likely most of the people of Rome, knew what meteors or shooting stars were, so it seems unlikely that they would misidentify meteors as flying discs.
Boom! Got him.
Yeah. I honestly thought you were going to play the do-do-do-do-do-do. Okay. All these events happened during a historic period of the Roman Empire known as the Crisis of the 3rd Century. The empire was divided into 3 competing states. There were 26 claims to the throne of the emperor, and was generally a time of chaos and military anarchy, which nearly led to the fall of the entire Roman Empire. It is no wonder that every single perceived portent of doom was recorded by historians during the tumultuous period.
So what I really haven't been doing enough, to be honest, is I provide the folklore, but I don't really provide the context around it, which I think is also very important. So during all these weird happenings and all these weird sightings, there was a lot of chaos going on in Rome, just in everyday life, let alone just paranormal stuff. So usually those two go in hand. So there you go.
I'm driving myself nuts.
Yeah.
Because I said the tumultuous period and not this tumultuous period.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay, fine.
They know which tumultuous period you're talking about.
They know it's this one?
Yeah, specifically.
This one.
They know it's the only tumultuous period Rome had ever had.
All right. Of course, our good friend Pliny the Elder, my best friend.
Yep, we talked about him all the time.
Recorded a UAP sighting in 76 BCE.
A spark was seen to fall from a star and to grow as it approached the earth. After it had become as large as the moon, light was diffused all around as if on a cloudy day. Then, retreating to the sky, the large object changed into a lamp. This is recorded to have occurred only once. Selenius, the proconsul, with his retinue saw it, and the consulship of Gnaeus Octavius and Gaius Scribonius. And Biggest Dickus.
Biggest Dickus.
I'm sorry, Gary. Do you find it risible when I say the name Biggest Dickus?
Patrick Stewart. Don't talk to me that way. You slowly started to morph into Patrick Stewart. It was great.
Yeah, he's in the Doctor Strange trailer.
Is he?
Yeah, his voice is.
No.
And then he confirmed it himself, so.
I wonder if it's Octavius.
You mean Professor X?
Not Octavius.
Yeah, that was Alfred Molina.
Yeah. That's So at first it seems like it could be a shooting star or similar phenomenon, but meteors don't typically fly back into the sky and change shape.
I don't think so.
For reference, an ancient Roman lamp looked like a mix between the lamp from Aladdin, but rounder with a disc-like top.
So
once again, bright lights and discs in the sky. Not long after, in 74 BCE, Greek philosopher Plutarch described a strange event during a battle in his biography of Roman general Lucullus.
Hey, forget about it. I mean, they are Italian after all. I can't do an Italian accent. I was this close. With these words, he led his army against Mithridates, having 30,000 foot soldiers and 2,500 horsemen. But when he had come within sight of the enemy and seen the amazement in their multitude, he desired to refrain from battle and draw out of the time. But Marius, whom Sertorius had sent to Mithridates from Spain with an army, came to meet him and challenged him to combat. And so he put his forces in array to fight the issue out. But presently, as they were on the point of joining battle with no apparent change of weather, all but on a sudden, the sky burst asunder, and a huge flame-like body was seen to fall between the two armies. In shape, it was almost like a wine jar, and in color, like molten silver. Both sides were astonished at the sight and separated. The marvel, which they say occurred in Phrygia at a place called Atroia.
Everything's on fire. Why is everything so
gracious, great balls of fire?
Why is everything so cool when it's on fire?
It's because fire is awesome, dude. My Elden Ring build, it's a bleeding fire build, so it doesn't get cooler than that.
So you have flames on your guy?
I literally set myself on fire and set my sword on blood fire and then fight bosses. And it's awesome.
Yeah, so I just seriously don't see how you don't think I would like that. But anyways.
Well, I mean, try it.
I digress.
No, I feel like if you're going to play a Dark Souls game, this is the one you need to play. Okay. For sure.
Okay.
Because like I said, it's a lot more forgiving in the fact that you can just go somewhere else.
The object described is definitely not a disc like those recorded by Livy, but is described as a wine jar, which at the time could either be slender or more spherical in shape. The silvery reflective color of the object is reminiscent of descriptions of sightings of modern UFOs. But given that the object seemed to crash and not fly back into the atmosphere, it's possible it might be a meteor. Meteors can be rich in metals like nickel and iron, which could account for the silvery appearance of the object.
Okay. See, we don't think everything's aliens. We just think most things are aliens. It's fine. So let's go ahead and jump forward about 900 years to the Middle Ages, where a series of strange encounters plagued several churches. We'll only cover one here in case we want to do a full episode covering what I believe is the most bizarre of these ancient UAP encounters. The following account, initially recorded in an Irish tome called the Speculum Regale, took place in a region of Ireland called Cloera, which is what is now the Crossderry Township, in 956 AD.
Did it happen to be a...
Yeah, no, Irish accent's the hardest to do.
I know.
By far.
There happened in the borough of Cloera.
In the borough of Cloera.
One Sunday, while the people were at mass, a marvel. In this town is a church dedicated to Saint Canaris. It befell that an anchor was dropped from the sky with a rope attached to it, and one of the flukes caught in the arch above the church door. The people rushed out of the church and saw in the sky a ship with men on board, floating before the anchor cable, and they saw a man leap overboard and jump down to the anchor, as if to release it. He looked as if he were swimming in water. The folk rushed up and tried to seize him, but the bishop forbade the people to hold the man, for it might kill him. The man was freed and hurried up to the ship, where the crew cut the rope and the ship sailed out of sight. But the anchor is in the church and has been there ever since, as a testimony.
As a testimony, indeed. Now, obviously, there are several things that make this particular UFO interesting. One, the use of a nautical anchor that was identified as such by witnesses in a little skyship. The witnesses clearly identified the object as a ship. And three, the sky sailor that came down to dislodge the anchor appears as though he was swimming in water and had to be saved by the bishop of the church so he wouldn't drown. So definitely seems like something out of like a Studio Ghibli movie.
I'm a very visual, like when I hear things, I picture it.
Right.
I think most people
Same.
do.
Yeah.
And I'm having so much trouble trying to picture what's going on here.
So, okay. So we got imagine a pirate ship in the sky.
Okay.
Okay. And then they dropped an anchor and it landed on the church.
Okay.
And then one of the sky pirates was like, oh man, I got to go dislodge the anchor. So he jumped overboard, but instead of falling like a normal person, he was swimming through the air and tried to dislodge the anchor. And then everybody was like, hey, these guys are obviously demons. Let's get them. So they were about to get them. The bishop said, no, do not get him. So they let him go and he had to swim back up. And then they were like, F this, let's get out of here. So
he was just kind of paddling in the air?
He was kind of like, yeah, exactly. He was kind of like, yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's definitely, this isn't a disc. This isn't an orb. This isn't a silvery object. This is just a straight up, like, wooden ship in the sky with an anchor that it drops down. So it's definitely weird. So absolutely nothing about this points towards an extraterrestrial craft. In fact, the ship seemed too terrestrial, like it was a vessel that you would normally find in the open sea. The use of an anchor in a hovering ship made me think of blimps, but obviously those wouldn't be invented for another 900 years and clearly would not explain the swimming sky sailor. Did you know there are only 24 blimps in the world?
No.
Like currently?
Really?
Like only 24. And also, did you know that helium is a finite resource and we're running out of it?
I knew that.
Which also blew my mind. I'm pretty sure I learned that from Smiling Friends, and I was like, what?
I knew helium was...
I just ruined your day.
While we're talking about helium real quick.
Oh, God.
What is the gas that you huff and have the exact opposite effect of helium?
Okay, hold on. I'm going to look it up.
I was wondering.
Yeah, that's a good question, actually.
Sulfur hexafluoride.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not as catchy as helium, is it?
No. It's like the voice disguise.
Sounds like something you definitely shouldn't huff, but I guess it's safe. Hey, man, you want to come over to my house and huff some sulfur hexafluoride?
Yeah, you couldn't even remember it already. It's been a minute.
I can remember helium. So, unfortunately, the monastery/church was destroyed by English invaders in 1552, so the skyship anchor was lost. Those English ruined everything about Irish culture. As like 15% Irish myself, I would take offense to this. Now, from a folklore perspective, one might think that this is nothing more than a fanciful tale born out of boredom and acts as a parable to be kind to strangers, except for the fact that this exact event has occurred several times in multiple places. So like I said, I'll add this to the topic list. So if you want to hear an episode solely on skyships, sooner than later, go vote now at patreon.com/Snipe Hunt.
Don't vote for that one.
Carrie's like, I'm over it already.
Now we jump forward 600 years to Nuremberg, Germany, to the event which inspired this episode and features a whole host of celestial phenomena. This is what was recorded by Hans Glaser in a news article broadsheet.
In the morning of April 14th, 1561, at daybreak, between 4 and 5 a.m., a dreadful apparition occurred on the sun, and this was seen in Nuremberg in the city, before the gates, and in the country, by many men and women. At first there appeared in the middle of the sun 2 blood-red semicircular arcs, just like the moon in its last quarter. And in the sun, above and below on both sides, the color was blood, and there stood a round ball of partly dull, partly black ferrous color. Likewise there stood on both sides, and as the torus about the sun, such blood-red ones, and other balls in large number. about 3 in a line and 4 in a square, also some alone. In between these globes, there were visible a few blood-red crosses, between which there were blood-red strips, becoming thicker to the rear, and in the front malleable like the rods of reed grass, which were intermingled among them 2 big rods, one on the right and the other on the left, and within the small and big rods there were 3, also 4, and more globes. These all started to fight among themselves, so that the globes, which are first in the sun, flew out to the one standing on both sides thereafter, and the globes standing outside the sun in the small and large rods flew into the sun. Besides, the globes flew back and forth amongst themselves and fought vehemently with each other for over an hour. And when the conflict in and again and out of the sun was most intense, they became fatigued to such an extent that they all, as said above, fell from the sun down upon the earth as if they all had burned, and then they wasted away on the earth in immense smoke. After all, there was something like a black spear, very long and thick-sided. The shaft pointed to the east, and point pointed west. Whatever such signs mean, God alone knows. Although we have seen, shortly one after another, many kinds of signs on the heaven, which were sent to us by the Almighty God to bring us repentance, we still are, unfortunately, so ungrateful that we despise such high signs and miracles of God, or we speak of them with ridicule and discard them to the wind, in order that may God send us a frightening punishment on the account of our ungratefulness. After all, the God-fearing will by no means discard these signs, but will take it to heart as a warning of their merciful Father in heaven, who will mend their lives and faithfully beg God so he may divert his wrath, including the well-deserved punishment on us, so we may temporarily here and perpetually there live as his children, forever may but God, regardless of... Amen.
Amen.
Did you get all that?
No.
So basically, it was a bunch of globes and crosses and rods all up in the sky against a blood-red weird sun, and they all decided to have an aerial dogfight, and then they all fell to earth in a flash of smoke. So, giant dogfight amongst very numerous UFOs. And it sounded like they were in formation at first, like a battle formation, so take that as you will.
Okay.
In other words, aliens.
Now, this was obviously interpreted through a religious lens at the time, as a sign from God for his followers to acknowledge and worship. But let's take a look at some proposed logical, quote-unquote, interpretations. Psychoanalyst Carl Jung proposed a more natural explanation.
It's pronounced young.
What?
It's pronounced young.
Jung.
Here, let me get in the mindset of Carl Jung. If the UFOs were living organisms, one would think a swarm of insects rising with the sun, not to fight one another, but to mate and celebrate their marriage flight.
My brain. This is what I expected.
Oh, no.
Let me get into the mindset of Carl Jung. If the UFOs were living organisms.
It's the UFOs!
The guy from The Hangover.
Oh,
The guy who got naked out of the trunk.
Yep, exactly.
So, believe it or not, I just saw that for the first time last night.
Seriously?
Yes.
Wow, Gary.
And I really enjoyed it.
I feel like every episode we talk about something that you haven't seen that need to see.
I'm moving on to the second one.
Yeah.
So. Anyways.
First one's obviously the best, but yeah. So I don't know if you remember Carl Jung, but he was actually in our time slip episode because he experienced a time slip. Oh. So it's funny. He's like, yeah, a time slip totally happened to me. But he's like, this wasn't UFOs. This was just a bunch of insects. And they were just a bunch of idiots who didn't know what bugs were.
One can easily dismiss this explanation as what was described was nothing like flying insects.
It didn't sound like it to me.
No. The odd thing is that this was not Nuremberg's first celestial phenomenon. On Good Friday of 1554, one broadsheet described a number of mock suns, and yet another that same year described an apparition of knights with fiery swords in the sky. All of these were interpreted as God sending a message to mankind.
Interpreted. So I find interesting was mock sun. So it sounds like there were several suns.
Is it me, or anytime there's any kind of natural disaster, it's always blamed on God? Like, God is doing it.
It depends on who's recording it. Yes.
Yeah.
but essentially. But yeah, the mock suns remind me of, when I hear the word or the term mock suns, I just see a bunch of small shining balls of light. What does that What does that sound like?
See a bunch of tiny balls.
It sounds like Aten, the sun disk. Okay. You get it. More context around the city around this time. Nuremberg was a very prestigious city in the late Middle Ages and attempted to remain neutral during Europe's Protestant Reformation, which occurred throughout the 1500s. The Protestant Reformation was a religious movement with the goal of separating from the Catholic Church. Amen. And this movement turned surprisingly violent on both sides. In 1552, the city was besieged by Protestant Margrave Albert as retaliation for Nuremberg remaining neutral. Although the siege ended in Albert's defeat, the city suffered huge financial losses as a result and was in a state of hardship when these celestial phenomena occurred. So, of course, in these hard times, people turned to their faith. And so when these strange objects in the sky were reported, it went hand in hand with encouraging people to repent and turn back to God. So either these sky spectacles were actually sighted and were interpreted as signs from an angry God, or it could be that these broadsheets were making up these events completely in order to convince Nuremberg citizens and neighbors to repent. But if these events are totally fabricated, wouldn't a sign from God be a little more on the nose? Why would a divine message take the form of globes and rods and fight over the city in order to get its inhabitants to turn from their alleged sinful ways during a time of hardship? To me, the answer is obvious. Aliens. Boom. Ba, 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 ba. Are you guys tired of that yet? I hope so.
Never.
Okay. So just 5 years after the events of Nuremberg, the city of Basel in Switzerland witnessed their own sky battle.
Oh, behave. Basel.
Some brief context before we jump into the broadsheet report. As in many poetic, mythological, and even alchemical texts, the sun, Sol, is referred to with masculine pronouns, while the moon, Luna, is referred to with feminine pronouns. I bring this up as the following broadsheet personifies the sun when recounting this strange celestial phenomenon.
It happened in 1566, 3 times, on 27 and 28 of July, and on August 7. Against the sunrise and sunset, we saw strange shapes in the sky above Basel. During the year of 1566, on the 27th of July, after the sun had shone warm on the clear, bright skies, and then around 9 p.m., it suddenly took a different shape and color. First, the sun lost all its radiance and luster, and it was no bigger than the full moon. And finally, it seemed to weep tears of blood, and the air behind him went dark. And it caught on fire. Lots of fire.
The sun caught on fire.
Exactly. And he was seen by all the people of the city and countryside. In much the same way also the moon, which has already been almost full and has shone through the night, assuming an almost bloody red color in the sky. The next day, Sunday, the sun rose at about 6 o'clock and slept with the same appearance it had when it was lying before. He lit the houses, streets, and around as if everything was blood red and fiery. At the dawn of August 7, we saw large black spears coming and going with great speed and precipitation before the sun and chattered as if they led a fight. Many of them were fiery red and soon crumbled and then extinguished.
So very similar to our Nuremberg sky battle, where we have a blood red sun, except a blood red sun that shone for like hours upon like over a day as blood red,
and then a blood red moon.
Then we have blood red moon, and then we have black globes going across the sun, or even as the previous sky battle determined in and out of the sun multiple times.
It's
and
an
then
eclipse.
Yeah, and then fighting each other, and then falling to the ground in an explosion. So this is described as an unusual sunrise, followed by an eclipse with a red-colored sun, followed by the appearance of globes. The problem is that the first event, the sun losing all its radiance and color and weeping tears of blood, happened at 9 p.m. and was shown all throughout the night. Definitely not a sunrise. The problem with the eclipse theory is that both the sun and the blood red moon were hanging in the sky together at night, but not once did they mention that they overlapped at all. So they identified, they're like, hey, that's the sun, and they're like, hey, that's the moon, together in the sky, both blood red. Which you would think they would be mentioned considering both heavenly bodies were mentioned. And then, of course, we have the black spheres, which seem to zip about and fight, which then turn to fiery red and were extinguished. So it sounds like another dogfight in which the losers' crafts exploded.
So proud of you knowing what the buttons do now.
I know. I just literally like added them like right before you got here, so that's probably why. Whereas last time I added them, it was such a long time ago, and then we finally recorded, and I was like, oh yeah, I have no idea. So the event is kind of vague, so it's kind of difficult to speculate any sort of actual explanation, logical or fantastical. But I think we can all agree that this one is definitely bizarre.
Now, our last and most modern event happened in 1803 on the shores of the Hitachi province of Japan, and details a story of contact with an unusual vessel and its mysterious occupant.
This one's kind of a last-minute ad, but this one's honestly the most interesting one out of all this bunch. It kept popping up in my research about ancient UFO sightings, which I guess it could be. It could also be a USO, an unidentified submerged object, or it could even just be an entirely earthly encounter. So make your own distinctions as I relay to you the tale of Utsuro Bune, the hollow boat. In February of 1803, fishermen spotted an object floating on the waves which appeared to be a small boat. They took their own boats and rowed out to the odd spherical vessel and with great effort towed the object back to shore and drug it onto the beach. The vessel measured roughly 10 feet tall and 18 feet wide and was very spherical in shape. The top half was made of what looked like red lacquered rosewood and with glass or crystal windows patterned like folding screens. The bottom half of this curious craft was bound with plates of hard metal, which the fishermen speculated was to protect the object from impact from sea rocks. The whole thing was watertight and seemed to be coated in some sort of pitch. The fishermen and onlooking villagers then took a step back in surprise when the top of the craft swung open via an unknown mechanism. From the craft, a young woman appeared. Her skin was pink in color, with fiery red hair and eyebrows. Her hair was worn long down her back and was feathered with extensions made of a white material and was powdered with a white substance, a hairstyle unknown to the Japanese village and even unknown to any historical literature to this day. Her dress was elegant and made of an unknown smooth fabric and was worn long down to her feet. The villagers attempted to communicate with the weird woman, but she responded in a language that no one recognized. With her, she carried a square, light-colored box and seemed to be protective of it and would not let anyone near it, but otherwise seemed to be friendly and courteous. Upon inspection of the ship's interior, the villagers found 2 fabric sheets, 2 small containers of water, insufficient for an extended voyage, some form of baked goods, and some kind of meat twisted together like a rope. Upon discussion of the fiery foreigner, the elder of the village tried his best to come up with a theory about who exactly this woman was. He theorized that she was a princess from a foreign land who had an affair with a commoner who was beheaded. The princess was spared the death penalty, but was exiled as punishment. The elder speculated that the box that she was so protective of contained the head of her executed lover. The elder claimed to have heard a similar tale of a woman washing ashore long ago. Further inspection of the craft revealed a, quote, small board with a pinned head, end quote, which seemed to corroborate the elder's hypothesis. The villagers also found that the boat was covered in a strange script that no one could discern. It was decided that they would put the mysterious mariner back out to sea to avoid an international incident. Japan was extremely isolated from the world at this time, so a foreigner washing up on Japanese soil would have caused an extensive government investigation. And so the villagers hardened their hearts and put the stranded sailor back out to sea. Some say she was never seen again, while others account that she washed back up onto other shores, but was then also turned away, left to the fate of the ocean tides. So there we go. That's the tale of Utsuro Bune, the hollow boat, and the woman inside. So what made this story into the realm of the UFOs were the depictions of this encounter in Japanese artwork, which make the vessel out to look very much like a modern UFO, which can be seen in the Ashuku Notes of 1815, the Hirokata Essays of 1825, the Mito document, and an ink drawing by Nagahashi Matajiro and several others. Some write this off as pure fiction, and many documents claim that the location of the Utsurobune came ashore and doesn't exist. But one source, the Bankei document, owned by a real-life ninja, Kawakami Jinichi, that sounds like a ninja name,
That's good.
of the Koka ninjutsu tradition, records the location as Hitachihara Shirahama, which is a real location now known as Hasaki Sharihama. And I actually have a ninja sound on our soundboard specifically for this occasion. Are you ready? There it is.
Good.
I got you so good. Because ninjas don't make a sound.
Man.
Oh,
I
man.
expected.
Yeah, I know.
God damn.
You're welcome. Gotcha.
All right, so let's try an earthly explanation first.
Let's try it.
The red hair, strange garb, and pink skin might indicate that this woman was a white woman. No,
No, seriously. Yeah. No.
yeah, I know. That's what we had in my mind. But she might have, of course, showed up on Japanese shores from another country. Russia would be our best guess for this woman's place of origin.
Yeah. One of the folklorists was like, oh, she might have come from Russia. She might have come from America. And I was like, maybe not.
Hey,
That's a long voyage.
I heard that Russia is actually only like 55 miles from the Alaskan coast, or 55 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty close. It's right there. You can
crazy.
Yeah, Sarah Palin wasn't joking when she said she could see Russia from her backyard.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Is it 50? It's 55 miles then. Yeah, it's 55 miles.
Yeah, if you take the tips that reach out to each other the most.
Crows.
Yeah.
As the crow flies.
As the crow flies,
Yeah.
indeed.
This would describe the strange garb and red hair, but as we mentioned before, her particular hairstyle seems to be unique only to her, and is definitely not a traditional Russian hairstyle.
Not that I could find.
Although it might be possible that this was the remains of a powdered wig, which was worn at the time and was often dusted in white powder.
Maybe. That was my own speculation, so threw that in there.
Now, circular boats are certainly a thing, such as the kufar of Arabic origin.
Yep.
The coracle in Wales,
Yep.
and the basket boats of Vietnam.
Nailed it.
But all these boats are rather small and flimsy and are made to travel on rivers and not the open ocean. I'm assuming also that I'm sure these people would have been familiar with those boats. Probably.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. They wouldn't have been so surprised or like intrigued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I read I couldn't find like a specific example, but I read it somewhere that the Japanese at this time had plenty of circular boats as well.
Right. They're definitely not reinforced with metal-like stuff like the hollow boat in this legend, and not covered like the Utsurobune either.
Yep.
This watertight covered boat with a strange opening mechanism would have had to have been a sea vessel unlike any other. At least not any that we could find.
Yeah, I couldn't find one like it. I mean, did you recognize it as a sea vessel that you were aware of,
No.
especially back in 1803?
Then again, I'm not very familiar with a bunch of sea
You're not a
vessels,
big boat
period.
guy, Gary?
I'm not a boat guy.
Here in Landlocked, Arkansas?
Right.
That's crazy.
Of course, it's entirely possible to create something similar to this at the time. The fact remains that the boat itself is extraordinary.
Yeah, I guess you could make a boat like the one described here in 1803, but it would require a ridiculous amount of effort, and it probably wouldn't be the best seafaring vessel of all time.
I want to know how they would have made it watertight.
Well, so I described pitch, which is it's made different ways, but primarily made through tree resin, and they use that to cover the bottoms of ships to make it watertight. It kind of creates a seal between the cracks.
See, I figured they could make them like buoyant.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about like when for some reason I had a feeling like she was completely submerged. And
that's the thing. That's what made this pretty unusual, because it seemed like the whole thing was watertight.
Seals and gaskets were not invented back then.
Exactly. Which makes this interesting.
Now, as per the theme of this episode, you can see why it's really easy to look at this through an extraterrestrial lens.
Yes.
We, of course, have the UFO or USO itself with its clear windows and metal body, the pink-skinned woman, the language barrier, the strange box she's holding, the unreadable writing inside the craft, or even the head pinned on a board, which might have been a screen showing a fellow alien through a space Skype video call.
Yep. Seems legit.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Well, now, this was before the invention of photography, which wouldn't truly be brought to the world until 1826. So the only logical explanation is aliens.
Never get tired of that. We have to use it as many times as possible because I don't think there's going to be another
We'll
episode
never use it again.
where we're going to do specifically the medieval cover of the X-Files theme on an episode. Maybe, but probably not. Now, interestingly enough, this particular tale has ties of folklore concerning the beginning of sericulture in Japan, which is the cultivation of silkworms to produce silk. As according to the legends recorded at the Sanrai Shrine in Kamiso City, the Kokegesan Shrine now in Kawasaki City, maybe the same city that produces the motorcycles, and the Kokage-san Shrine in Hitachi, there's an extremely similar tale, the tale of the Golden Princess. I'll keep it brief. So this legend goes to in the 3rd century AD. A princess from northern India was experiencing many hardships in her land, primarily caused by her evil stepmother. Like she's a Disney princess. Yeah. So she escaped in a timber boat made of mulberry wood and drifted all the way to the waters of Japan, where she was brought ashore by the good fisherman Gandayu. Yeah, that's how you pronounce it. And so here's where the story diverges in a couple different versions. The first says the princess taught the local people about the farming of silk and silkworms, which she already knew a great deal about. But my favorite version is that the feeble and exhausted princess died despite Gandayu's best efforts and transformed into a worm. Gandayu believed this worm to be the reincarnation of the princess, so he cared for the worm and fed it mulberry leaves. Soon the worm spat out a beautiful thread and wrapped itself in a cocoon. Gandayu then took some of this thread and wove it into fabric and started the practice of sericulture in Japan. So that may be what the elder of the Tsurobune village was referencing when he said, I'm pretty sure I heard something like this before.
There's another folklore like that. There's another fable, like a story about
a woman washing ashore.
Was it not Rumpelstiltskin? Is it Rumpelstiltskin?
Yeah, I think
where he threads gold, like.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's you are making folklore connections though, so that's good. Yeah, but yeah, that's where it's like thread.
What was the name of it?
Yeah, no, it's Rumpelstiltskin.
It is Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, you're good. Rumpelstiltskin was actually my nickname in high school. Don't ask why. So it's likely that the legend of Tsurobune was heavily influenced by this legend. There are also many other tales of regal women being taken ashore in their strange boat in Japan. Tanaka Kazuo, a professor at Gifu University, is well aware of these other legends and has researched extensively into the tale of Tsurobune and concludes that this particular tale, just this one, seems a lot more credible than other similar legends. Probably because, she doesn't turn into a worm. As it mentions a specific date, a specific legend, a vessel that is unlike any of the other stories, and a reason as to why the pink woman was set back out to sea, that being the isolationist mandates at the time. So this is the most detailed of all the similar legends, where the other ones were kind of kept vague and unconvincing. This was like, this happened in February of this year in this spot with this very specific vessel, and she was set out to sea for this very specific reason. And that one of the sources of the legend, because there are quite a few, are filled with other incidents that actually took place. So it would be weird for it to be in a collection of incidents that actually took place, and they're like, oh, and here's one fable just thrown in just for no reason.
Why not?
It's true. It makes it interesting. So at the very least, it seems that some version of the event actually did happen at some point. So there you go. I thought that was an interesting one to throw in there. So, and that's it. Like all episodes, this research definitely took me somewhere I did not expect to go, mostly with the woman in an almost submarine ship.
Do you watch a lot of videos when you do this?
Actually, I don't.
No?
Surprisingly enough.
You read?
Yeah, I read.
That's why you're so smart.
I wouldn't call myself smart.
See, I can fall down a YouTube video rabbit hole, but I could not fall into a reading rabbit hole.
It's just So I'll read about something and it will reference something else. I'm like, well, what's this something else is this referencing? And then so on and so forth. And that's how I'm able to make all these folklore connections. There are also many, many other ancient UFO sightings. So if there's one that you know about that you didn't hear on this episode, one, I'd be very surprised. But two, let us know on social media or email us at snipehuntpodcast@gmail.com. What is your favorite ancient UFO tale? Out of the ones we covered today, I would have to say the Vamanas of India, just because of the carpet bombing thing. I thought that was very interesting. And the tale of Utsurabune, because it was very unexpected and also very interesting. And the most detailed by far out of all of them. What do you think? What's your favorite out of the ones we covered?
The one you added in at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Like I said, this is definitely the most detailed of all of them. And
Right.
it was a lot more speculation on it. Or it could just be something very mundane.
There just wasn't a whole lot going on for my head.
Right.
Like all the other ones, it was too much
Just like,
going on for my head.
This happened, this,
Yeah,
name,
like,
this. Yeah, no, exactly. No. But yeah, this one was easy to understand and it was easy to speculate about. So I totally freaking agree. But yeah, let us know your favorite one and just get a hold of us. I already told you how.
Easy.
You got it.
Hey, did you, by the way, speaking of getting a hold, did you see that message? I didn't open it because
What
I figured
message?
it was spam. The chick saying that she wanted more information on our business.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Did
No.
you see it? I
We
didn't
get
even-
that with,
I didn't even open it.
We get that with the band pages all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I just deleted it.
I don't want to open this. 'Cause I'm not,
You can open it as long as you don't like click a link in there. It's fine.
messages to me are just so sketchy nowadays.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I think so I ran an ad, but I forgot to change it, the goal of this ad, because the goal by default is to get more messages, which I think is stupid. So I have to manually change it to get more page likes or something. So if people are like, hey, that sounds interesting, and click on it, it'll automatically go to the message page and it'll automatically send a message. So that could be part of it.
you see, I'm just sketched by everything anymore because, like,
You should be.
I
should be.
had a buddy get hacked, his Facebook.
Yeah. It happens all the
And
time.
The hacker goes through and reads how he kind of texts on his messages,
Yeah. And
and then messages his friends saying, you know, oh, like,
then send me $15.
yeah, like I'm not feeling well. My bank card's not working. Hey, could you spot me like $20 and I'll pay you back?
Yeah, I got one from this guy I went to high school with. I was kind of friends with him, but he was like, "Hey, can you spare me $15 so I can buy diapers until Friday?" And I was like, "It's Thursday." So no,
Yeah.
I didn't even reply to it. I just deleted it.
There you go. And of course, everybody knows that if you like the show,
Mhm.
you know what to do. I tell
You
you
do.
every single
If you
time.
listen to podcasts at all, you know exactly what to do.
Give us a rating on whatever app you use that lets you use one.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, Spotify now does ratings. So that's as good a spot as any.
No, I haven't checked in a bit, Trevor. But I looked at Spotify and I didn't see a rating from you. So
Yeah.
it had 0 ratings, and I left a rating because why wouldn't I?
I still haven't even seen
Trevor,
it.
I want you to get back on Spotify. I want you to make sure that you left a 5-star rating.
Yeah, Trevor. The heck, man.
Oh, shout out to Trevor, by the way. He's a cool guy.
He doesn't sound very cool.
No, he is.
He'll be cool once he leaves a rating.
Yeah, exactly. He's the drummer from my band.
Oh,
Hi, Trev.
rock on, dude. Give us as many stars as possible and leave us a comment on why you love the show or hate it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Just leave us.
Just leave us 5 stars and then leave a comment
Yeah.
saying how much you hate the show. We're fine with that.
Follow us on social media. Send us a message about anything. I mean, anything. Just no lewd pics. Okay, lewd maybe.
Just one per person.
Just lewds.
Yeah.
Don't do nudes.
No.
Lewds.
Yeah, we're professional here at the
Yes.
Snipe Hunt Podcast.
We'd love to hear from you, of course. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, YouTube, TikTok. The links to most of these are in the show notes on the episode.
So here's our check-in. How's the TikToks coming, Gary?
Dude, I have so many in drafts. It's unreal.
Oh, at least
I'm just going to
you got
like
something.
one day, I'm just going to let them.
Just let them all
I'm just
out.
going to
free.
Yeah, just let them free.
Just open the bird cage and
your
let
head,
them fly out.
Your head is going to freaking explode. It's going to take you 2 hours. Yeah, exactly. It's going to take you so long to watch every one of them.
Dude, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Reminder that this episode is a patron voted episode, so check out our tiers on Patreon to see if you're interested in voting for future episodes and or the bonus content we have on there, including early access to episodes via our raw and uncut versions. So now that I'm not coughing anymore, knock on wood, I can finally record another little bonus creepypasta, which is actually very interesting. It's about like a little Irish version of a vampire, so I'm looking forward to it. And of course, a link to our Patreon page can be found in the show notes. And as usual, if you have a topic suggestion, question, comment, criticism, or if you have a story about UFOs, USOs, UAPs, or anything else, please contact us on social media or email us at snipehuntpodcast@gmail.com and let us know if you would like to hear your story in one of our Encounters episodes. And now we are back to landing on the final joke. Gary, which chewing gum do aliens love most? Your time starts now.
Do
you give up?
Bubblicious.
Yes, actually, no. It's a Orbit.
I knew it was going to be a play on a name brand.
Yeah.
I knew.
Yeah. You're welcome. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
For millennia, mankind has witnessed strange objects in the skies above and even in the oceans that surround us. These reports continue to this day. Is there a logical explanation for each of the millions of sightings that have occurred over thousands of years? Or is something more going on? We leave that for you to decide. So continue to keep an eye on the sky, as you might just see, flying right above your head, unidentified, frightening folklore. Once again, we want to thank you for listening to Snipe Hunt. Your listening has been noted and will be reported to the proper authorities. All audio used was done so under fair use.
The music you have heard in this episode was composed by Mayu, Nature World 1986, and Feslian Studios. We'll continue to search for the unexplained and hopefully see you on the next hunt.
Am I saying it?
No, you're good.
Iron?
That's fine.
Iron?
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 Iron.
How do you say it?
Iron.
Iron.